Aren't you the most magnificent thing?
So I got a million questions for you. First, how you doing today?
I'm doing well. I've got a little bit of a cough, just my body's starting to give up on the sprint that I've been on for months now, but good. Can't complain.
Since South by, I've been traveling a bunch and I had to moderate some stuff in Indiana at a Comic-Con. And about 2 days ago, I started getting the congestion and my body is finally like, fuck off. You're done.
Yeah, you're done here. I finished the movie right before South by Southwest. So I was like going nuts going into that and then had the festival and then New York. Then after our New York premiere, my body's like, we're shutting it down for 2 days now. And I didn't do anything. And I just, yeah. But now I'm back on my feet with only a cough to show for it.
Yeah, I know a lot of directors and they say right after the shoot wraps, they go down for like a week because you've just been pushing yourself for so long. And then when you can finally ease up, your body's like, it's over.
It knows where the finish line is. Absolutely. Yeah.
100%. So, how much, jumping into into a little bit about you and before we get into the film, how much did you debate what you wanted to make as your first feature? Because like a lot of people, I've spoken to a lot of people and they say like, what is that first film? Because the truth is you might only get to do one.
Yeah, I mean, it's something I debated for a long time. I mean, I've been working as a producer for a number of years. I've been working as a screenwriter for a number of years. None of my scripts have been produced, but I've been working with them in development, with production companies and other directors and actors, casting, so forth. I don't know. I didn't have an impulse to direct until a couple scripts ago. I think I've written like 10 or 12 feature scripts or something like that. And only a couple ago did I start to think, oh, I think I should be directing this potentially. And I think that's just a product of like getting better as a writer, I hope. Feeling like I'm tapping into something that I was trying to express and didn't necessarily know how, or I don't know, you just learn from so many, steps along the way. I think with this, this checked a number of boxes in terms of like excitement levels. I tend to write slowly. I also know, having produced movies, that like directing your first feature, it takes years. I've been developing this movie from when I started developing with A24. It was almost 5 years ago. Almost 5 years ago. And I had written it before that. Like I'd done a version of it on the script, and then I'd outlined it before that. So I kind of know that like at the outset, I needed to have a lot of reasons to want to do it, because otherwise it's way too easy to stop somewhere along the way. And so, one of the big reasons was when I had the idea for this movie, I realized it was kind of a way to make a love letter to some of the movies that made me fall in love with filmmaking and film, from my youth. That like when I was a young adult and young person, I was like very into and excited by, and felt like they were providing a sort of populist escapism that I loved. And realizing like, oh, I get to do my version of that. That was a really exciting thing that felt like, worth holding on to. As far as first features go too, it's in a genre, like not to be too pragmatic about it, but like it's in a genre space that helps certainly get things made, get things greenlit, get things a certain, potential for them. But also, in relation to it being genre, it being, a popcorn movie in the sense of the movies that made me fall in love with cinema, there's like a certain theatricality to it that's fun, that like it invites being seen on a big screen with a big crowd. And those are the kind of movies I want to be making. A24 is committed to that sort of filmmaking and that sort of film exhibition. And so when I had this idea and I kind of saw all the things it would allow me to play with, and the canvas it allowed me to play with, and the story, I don't know, it just felt like this was one to hold on to for myself, and to try and see if there's a way for me to find my way into it and make it feel personal and weird and idiosyncratic in the ways that I would hope my first feature would be.
You mentioned you've produced, I think you've produced like 20 things. What did you learn as a producer that you made, like that carried with you into making this film, in terms of like the lesson that you've seen being either on set or in production meetings?
It's so hard because it's like a perspective thing. It's not like I have like a bullet list of like, here's the 5 things I'm going to do that's different than what I've seen. For one, there's just like a certain familiarity and comfort level on set. Like I like being on a set. I know where I kind of I know what that environment is like, and I like problem solving within that space. Obviously, directing and producing are different things, but as a producer, I was always standing right next to the director, kind of helping them figure out their vision, helping them make sure they got what they wanted. Making sure that the movie was, in a literal way, just like cutting together. Do we have the coverage that we need? Did we get the performance that we need? Are there diminishing returns keeping going, or should we move on? But I don't know. I wish I could say that it was like, oh, here's my 5 things I learned as a producer. I just think it's more of like a perspective of getting closer to that 10,000 hours thing, getting that comfort level up. But there's just a lot of, you making a movie, it's like you make thousands of decisions. You just like make thousands upon thousands of decisions, and there's just something to helping other people make those decisions. Perhaps you get to see some setbacks. You see where people make some really great decisions that maybe go counter to your own instincts, and you realize like, oh, that was the right call. And it's hard to pinpoint it now, but it's like, you put those experiences in your back pocket and hope it kind of informs the whole. Yeah, not to duck the question, but.
No, I totally get it. So you've now made your first film. You had VFX, you had big movie stars. Like, was there something, if you could go back in time to the first day of filming, is there anything that you tell yourself because you learned it while making this? Or was it one of these like pretty smooth sailing projects?
We had a great time making the movie. I think the production process, like I got sad when it was ending. I was like, oh man, I loved shooting this movie. I loved our cast. I loved our crew. We really got very lucky. It was like a real no assholes policy. And we succeeded with that. And I think there's certainly things that I'm like, man, if I was reshooting that scene, I'd get this angle, or I'd try and get a take that did this, or things like that. But I'm overall, I feel very fortunate in that we made the movie we set out to make. I don't think there was a ton that we were like, oh no, we got to salvage this and scrap this whole idea. And there are scenes that ended up on the cutting room floor. So, if I could have those days back again, I'd be like, well, that scene's not going to be in the movie, so let's not waste 6 hours shooting it. But at the same time, you only learn that through the process. So I don't know. It's tough. I'm a real, I don't know if I could actually tell myself to do this, but like have fun with it, which I think I did get to a place, but like, there's a certain anxiety when it's all coming out of your head and pouring onto the page, or pouring out of the page onto your head, out of your head, like into the camera, talking to everybody. That's like, there's just so much logistics and all those thousands of decisions stacking up. It's a little forest through the trees, but sometimes, you look around, you be like, there's a really cool puppet over there, and Paul Rudd and Jenna Ortega and Will Poulter over there, and they're saying the words that I wrote, and it's a very surreal time. I tried to enjoy the ride as much as I could, but I feel like you could always go back and have more fun with it.
Yeah, I've heard that from everyone, and we put on studios at different film festivals and places, and I wish I could enjoy it more, but you're working so hard that you only enjoy it when it's right about to end, and you realize, oh, it's about to end.
Yeah, I laugh a lot as a person. I like to joke around. So there's definitely and with this ensemble, it's hard not to have fun with it. But, I was certainly in the pressure cooker of, I think prep was probably more stressful than the actual shooting. Sometimes with prep, you're just sort of like pushing a boulder up a hill, and then once you start shooting, the boulder's rolling, and you just kind of need to guide the boulder and be like, all right, we're going to try and push it in this direction, but it's moving, however you set it up to go, that's where it's going to go. And so I think the prep was really the most stressful part of it for me. Once we got shooting and the actors were there, that got much more into like play,
Sure. How much did you debate the title? Was it always Death of a Unicorn, or did you almost have something else?
It was literally only ever called Death of a Unicorn. I never entertained another title. It used to be Death of a Unicorn with an E on the end, which is a Middle English kind of antiquated spelling of unicorn. So it was Unicorne. But that certainly, which is something that was what it was for most of the history of the project. But Obviously the movie has a lot of references to medieval unicorn mythology and lore from antiquity. And so that was sort of a nod to that. But in discussions with A24 and marketing, there's like some concern about like, we've got a weird enough movie as is. Do we also need to tell people we're, medieval history nerds in the process, or let them discover that as they watch the movie? Which wasn't like a major, picadillo for me, but it was an interesting conversation that I was like, okay, that seems like a good, get people in the cinema, then tell them we're weirdos, Yeah.
No, you made the right call.
Oh, yeah.
100%. The title that you have is the right title.
Oh yeah, no, I don't know. It was one of those titles that just kind of came to me, and I was like, all right, great. I had another script idea that was like Death of a Blank, like years ago. I mean, I never even wrote it. It was just like a story. It was more of a short story than anything, and I don't know why. It's just like kind of that structure I like. Yeah.
So again, first film, and you put together this like insane cast. So I'm just curious, what kind of blackmail material did you have on everyone to actually get everyone in this movie? Because I know, I'm joking around, but like it's crazy.
Yeah, no, my compromat is very much secure and locked away, and no one will ever know because they all did the movie. That was the deal. You do the movie, the compromat stays locked away. No, I mean, I don't know. I just wrote this script that I thought would be fun to be in if I was an actor. I tried to make every character have their moment to shine and be democratic in the sense of balancing the ensemble and letting everyone have their fun moments where, no one's really a straight man. They all have their own idiosyncrasies and perspectives. And so I don't know. I honestly just feel like I got very lucky. I wrote the lead role for Paul, and the ensemble sort of started with him because he had read, and we were talking. We had met years ago about another script that I had written that I was not attached to direct, and in that meeting, he sort of hinted at asking me in a coy way, like, do I ever write for specific actors? And I kind of took that as an invitation that someday I should write something for him specifically. So I did that. And then, that was like kind of the first domino, and what an incredible domino to get in place, a role that I'd literally tailored for him, hoping he would do it. And he loved the script and he got very excited by it. And, from there, building an ensemble is just a really fun, stressful, exciting thing, especially one like this where it's like all these different family units, and that's something casting director A.B. Kaufman and I talked about a lot, like how you shape each of these family units. And then, A.B., very lucky to have her on the team. She's just a genius. She's a legend. She's put together some of the best casts of any movies, like period, full stop. And, having her as the North Star kind of guiding, like, here's how we're going to do this beat by beat and build it out one person at a time was, and then at a certain point, you're just like, well, if you get on a roll, don't look down, just keep going, keep shooting for the stars. Yeah, I don't know. We just got very fortunate.
It definitely helps with Paul, but then each domino that you push helps you get the next one. Because once you start assembling an all-star line, it's so much easier, I would imagine.
Yeah, then it becomes like, yeah, exactly. Then you get someone, like Anthony Carrigan wanting to step in to play like the role of Griff, which on the page doesn't have much dialogue, but like my contention was always that's like one of the most prominent roles in the movie because he's always around. He doesn't say much, but he's always there. We're always checking in with him, seeing what he sees, what's his reaction to this and that. But yeah, absolutely. I think you only get that sort of strength of ensemble by each step of the way, not letting the chain get weak, and I don't know, I count myself just so fortunate that all of these actors chose to be in the movie because they're, as you said, it's an embarrassment of riches of just like, it makes my job very easy.
I definitely have to ask you, I brought it up with Anthony, but what was it like for you at the world premiere at South by when Anthony is the one who got the biggest applause?
I mean, I was really touched by that. I like wanted to cry because I love Anthony. He's such a sweet guy and he's so talented and so nice and so smart and funny. And I don't know, that's a guy who deserves all the flowers as far as I'm concerned. He's such a team player and just like down to earth, really, really talented. And it was cool to see that room light up for him. I like really, I don't know what to say other than like that's surreal. And I'm so glad he got to have that moment of recognition because I think he's been doing such great work on Barry for years. I think he did great work in the movie, and I don't know. He's like someone I'm like, sky's the limit for that dude.
I guess I'll talk about editing because I love talking about editing with people. So talk a little bit about, you get in the editing room, you have your assembly cut or your first director's cut. Were you ready to jump out the window, or were you like, oh, I got it, this is going to come together?
I think that's one of those things where like being a producer helped me. I've watched a lot of assemblies, the classic adage is things never look as good as they do in dailies or as bad as they do at the first assembly, and so that the first assembly, it's like, it's helpful to say this out loud. It's like, this is literally the worst the movie will ever be. Like, it'll never be this bad ever again. Hopefully. So no, I mean, when I watched it with that in mind of like having seen, all of the assemblies for every movie I produced. And knowing, you have to watch it with watching rough cuts, watching assemblies. It's like a real, you have to develop the goggles you need. So when I saw it, I was like, okay, we made what I thought we made. And there's work to do, but like, the assembly made me laugh. I trusted my editor. He made some good choices. We made them better over time. Yeah, I don't know. I was pretty intimately involved in the edit. So coming in, except for the assembly, the editor is that first assembly, usually unsupervised. So it was funny because it's like we wrapped, he was cutting while we were shooting. So we wrapped. I went home. We shot the movie in Budapest. I traveled home, and I think 3 or 4 days later, I watched the movie, for the first time. So yeah. It was just, that's what it was.
I want to ask one last thing, and I know they're going to kill me, but you have some great death scenes in the movie. And I just want to, like, real quick, can you talk about how you came up with those scenes? Was it all in the script? How much were you figuring it out in pre-production, working with like makeup and stunts or whatever? You know what I mean? And if you could just talk about some of those sequences.
Yeah, those were all scripted. Those were all storyboarded in prep. Some of them in very early prep, in fact, because to get this movie greenlit, we had to know what all the creature shots were. So we had a bid to match that of like, here's how, what everything costs. So that meant I had to really, figure out a lot of that stuff prior to anything happening, prior to casting really starting, and so yeah, that was sort of the nature of the beast with that. So I don't know. I mean, they were all, like that's part of the fun of writing sometimes is you're like, okay, what are the inventive ways I could do this? What are the, some of the deaths have homages baked into them of like, what's the fun tongue-in-cheek kind of reference point here that I could do? Or, at a certain point you want to keep things fresh. You don't want to just do the same thing. It's very easy with a unicorn movie to be like, okay, he's going to stab someone through the chest and stab someone through the chest and stab someone through the chest. So it became a fun game of like, how do you do something different each time and feel like you're kind of sating the audience's bloodlust anew by giving them, it's part of the spectacle and the fun of the movie.
Oh, 100%. Also, I saw it with a huge crowd and people were like erupting. Yeah,
so, there's a cathartic rage joy from the unbridled violence and the inventiveness in a way that I don't know. Like I said before, it's a love letter to so many of these kind of movies where that's like a pleasure of like the Evil Dead movies, or so many movies where you're like, yeah, there's gonna be some fun kills and moments that are brutal and bloody and silly in that,
Well, it's basically because you wrote characters that I wanted to see killed. And so,
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, just throwing that out there. And listen, I got to stop, even though I had other things. I'll just say congrats on the movie. I really hope it opens and it's a big success for you so you can do more shit.
Thanks so much, man. Me too. I'm hoping for the same thing.